Welcome to Growing Up with AI, where I speak to people working on AI around how they think about the technology in the context of their kids. Today I'm joined by Tom Foster Carter, who is the CEO and founder of Cherrypick. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Tom, you've had a bunch of really interesting roles across your career. When your kids ask you, what do you do for a living? What is the answer that you give them?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I guess it has changed over time. I actually heard my son Freddie recently boasting to his friends on a play date. My daddy made his company. So he's like, yeah, but the company he works for, he actually made it. He made the company. And I felt super proud. I really loved this kind of boast. And I suppose it helps as a founder in the consumer space. I'm working on quite tangible things. And so we use Monzo cards. Now the children have Monzo cards. They've got their own cards and they understand that this is a company that daddy helped to build. And I guess I love that. I love the fact that this is a thing that they can see the cards around other people using them as well. And I've ended up moving from the fintech space. I did three businesses on the fintech side: Oscar for children, Curve, a aggregated card, and then Monzo. And I've now moved into food side. And basically, my company Cherrypick helps busy families to get their meal planning and grocery shopping sorted all in one place. And the idea is we try to assist your eating as well, just helping guide you to eat better. So our phrase is eat better effortlessly. And I think that my kids definitely understand that about as well, because we're very often eating cherry pick meals and they go, is this a cherry pick one, Dad? And it's like, yes, it is. And that is pretty much all we eat. And certainly for my eldest one, he will notice the difference in how much I'm cooking and the quality of what we're eating. So I feel like they've got a pretty good sense, even if they don't kind of get the day to day, because of the tangibility of the products that I built.
So you're doing the dog fooding, the products with your own kids quite successfully, it sounds like
Oh
it.
goodness, yeah, we're absolutely dog fooding. It's funny, we used to have a sort of scheme where we would give money to the team for using Cherry Pick, and we called it dog fooding. And I sort of thought, this is just not a great term for this.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that we're something above that, but it is obviously the one that is used in the industry. But yes, so we eat our own dog food, but I would like to say that it is a lot tastier than what I imagine dog food is like.
It's a fair point around actually that terminology used in technology. It sounds much less exciting in the context of grocery deliveries.
100%.
You use AI both from a development side perspective, so your developers use it quite a lot, but also you've integrated it into your product in multiple places. You've been in technology for a while, so when you say AI, what does that mean to you?
It's a great question, isn't it? I feel like when you look at this as the advancement of technology and kind of think about what's really happening here, I like to think in terms of kind of what does it do, because really that's all that matters ultimately, right? And although I look so sprightly and young, I'm actually a very old man that's kind of seen a lot of change, and I kind of think back to some of the moments where we thought that technology is becoming intelligent and what our bar was for intelligence. And it started off, it was pretty low. So I'm actually kid of the MS-DOS era, where this was command line prompts, it's text. And so when Windows came out with a kind of more graphical user interface, that was mind blowing, and that kind of felt intelligent in itself. And then everything behind that sort of felt very, very dumb and basic when you're just having to use text. And so if you kind of look through, fast forward, there was a moment where I guess tech was able to identify a cat, or identify dogs, or identify that something was a tree. And that sort of felt like a big step forwards. But if you actually put that bar against, let's say, kind of human capability, that is very basic. That's kind of, I suppose, a 3-year-old could do that when you're
Yeah,
reading
less
to
than that. Yeah.
your kids, right? And we kind of thought it was pretty amazing that tech could do that. And so you kind of look at what AI is able to do now, and really there are three elements, right? I think the thing can generate a picture. It can generate a dog or a cat that it has never existed before, like that. That is pretty nuts. So there's this sort of kind of creation element. There's a collaboration part. I'm feeling like the way that I work with with AI and this term, the kind of co-piloting, like this is the real deal.
Yeah.
Now I've got GPT open all day, and I'm just kind of asking it random stuff. And this is definitely this kind of extra assistant. It's not quite able, it's not doing stuff for me yet to the level that I'd like it to be. I'm certainly collaborating with it. And so, that sort of feels very exciting. And then there's a sort of decision making. And that I think is like the big piece. And I'm very kind of early on this, but I'm seeing stuff that's happening out there. And I definitely know its potential for it. I want to get this set up so that the stuff that is coming to me, I could get the first filter done by AI. And that seems sort of pretty amazing. And this is already happening. I think the sort of technology that we're using. I drive a Tesla. Not a big fan of Elon Musk, but he does make good cars. And this thing is decision making.
Yeah.
Now I can set it to drive itself. 80% of the time, it does a good job. Now that's not a great actual threshold for success when it's driving my car with me and my family. So I don't love it. But when that is kind of 99.9%, then I'm going to be very, very happy with this decision making. And I think that that's probably what we're all finding. It's kind of 80% good at the things that we're giving it on these sort of early tests around decision making. But we can all see the potential. Like, okay, this is the worst it's ever going to be. Let's fast forward this to 3, 4, 5 years time. It's going to blow our minds what it's doing.
You and your co-founder and CTO have been quite honest about generative AI examples that haven't worked out for you either. I'm kind of thinking about the WhatsApp grocery chatbot, for example, here. What have you learned while you were trying to build features for your customers around where AI is actually able to do something for them and where maybe it doesn't quite work yet?
Yeah. Yeah. So we tried a few things. I mean, I remember actually for our recipe importing. So we allow you to take a photo of your favorite recipe and it can pull it into the app as if it was a recipe that we had done and kind of make that shoppable. And I remember one of our engineers sort of saying that, so this was 2 or 3 years ago. One of our engineers sort of saying, oh, because the data is sort of very unstructured, sort of comes in all these different forms, I found this thing called GPT. And it does a very good job of just sort of turning that into something that we can use. I'd never heard of it, hadn't seen it in the press or anything like that. But this was super, super early. And it's just, I think, a kind of lovely example of there was a real need.
Yeah.
And we kind of went, grabbed it, used it, and that's been kind of sat in the product ever since. We tried to push the boundaries a bit very, very early when ChatGPT became a thing and it was on papers and so on. We're like, gosh, we've got to jump on this. If we're not doing it, then who else is in this space? And we developed you could shop over WhatsApp. And honestly, I don't know. The idea felt great, but the actual reality of it, I didn't feel like we should invest any more time in it. And so, to the great sadness of the team, I'd said, look, we've got sort of bigger fish to fry here. Nobody was saying to us, I really want to shop over WhatsApp. We were kind of doing it because the technology was there.
Yeah.
And it's a classic way of getting it wrong. So we've got one of our kind of operating principles is customers at the core. This is the same principle you can use over all of time, and as all technologies develop, you've got to just keep that at the heart. It's like, actually, what do customers want? I'm convinced now customers really don't care about the how. I don't actually need to know how my Tesla works. I do just want to know that it does some really cool stuff. And, it's got these doors that open up like a gull wing. Now, when that goes wrong, and then I've got a Tesla engineer out and he's explaining, well, it's because it's got these sensors here and so on, and they've been malfunctioning. And I don't care. This isn't working. My doors don't open. You've done something you think is really clever, but I feel like an idiot when I've dropped my kids off at school because of this silly car and the doors don't open. So fundamentally, it's just about like, what can this thing do for me? And that's where I think AI is brilliant when you just think, okay, what's the actual use case? And so, simple example for us, I'm coming back from a holiday. We realized the fridge is going to be completely empty, and I want to get a shop done. And it was 10 to 11, and we were sort of driving along the motorway on the passenger seat. And I'm like, okay, I want to get a shop done in 2 minutes. Now, that's a real use case. It came up for me. I know that other people were in the same situation. A lot of times people block a slot with a bottle of champagne and suddenly remember it's nearly 11 o'clock. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, I'm about to get a bottle of champagne tomorrow. I need to get a shop done. And that's where I'm like, okay, great. Let's use AI for this. So, we've got a feature which will generate the meal plan for you in a few seconds. And it can actually just do the rest of the shop for you in a few seconds. And that's the type of thing where it's like, okay, great. Do people care about how it works underneath it? No, they just like either they look at it and like, yes, that's the stuff I wanted, or they look at it and go, no, you've spent more time now fixing this than I would have done just to do it myself. You create a lot of frustration, and that's when you kind of got the technology wrong.
So you mentioned the customers at the core of your product thinking. Now, a lot of the time that means listening to the customer, but every now and then it also means inventing something the customer didn't yet ask about. And it feels to me like AI enables that much more. So how do you balance these two sides against each other? Or how do you decide where to put your investment?
Yeah, that is a super interesting one, isn't it? I feel like Steve Jobs talked about this and these moments where until they kind of see it. So say with the iPad, and I actually just didn't get it. And I was like, okay, great. That's thankfully one piece of technology that I don't need. And now both my kids have got them and so on. Like, this is it just sort of slots in. So I found when we're prioritizing on a product's roadmap, what you end up doing is just balancing across a few different inputs.
Yeah.
And so, yes, starting off with the customers sort of screaming, the customers have been screaming at us to make it so when you're looking at a recipe, the ingredients are actually there in the method. So you're not having to kind of jump across between two different places, right? It's how all recipes are done. You've got the ingredients in one place, not the other. So this is just super simple. We need to build this.
Yeah.
Embarrassing we haven't built it yet, but this is in the works. We will build this in the next few weeks. There are other things that they just don't even kind of know to ask. And so those are kind of really interesting ones where you've got to be quite careful when you're interviewing customers, speaking to your customers. You've got the problem space and the solution space, and stay in the problem space and listen to the problems they're talking about. And they will often jump to some solution that's kind of the easiest thing that they can imagine as
Yeah.
to how to do it. So somebody's saying, "Hey, could you just make it so that it's really easy to tab between ingredients and method?" And that's the solution. And it's like, actually, what is it? Why do you suggest that? What was it you're trying to solve for? Oh, it's just because it's kind of annoying not having the ingredients there. And I'm like, yeah, okay, great. We'll
Yeah.
use tech and we can do a better thing for that. And it's not something they have necessarily thought of. And sometimes, I'm looking at the product's roadmap and there are areas where, okay, this is our vision and we want to, for example, help people to eat better. People are telling us that they find it difficult to identify ultra processed foods. We are going to need to do something which just makes this super, super easy. And it's probably going to involve us creating a data model
Yeah.
to be able to sort of play back, and then we've got to create some sort of really nice way of visualizing that and so on. And this is just stuff where the only thing we can do is we can get the problem from the customer, and then everything else we've got to kind of make the steps for. And I would basically say if you're making some step where you haven't seen it on the problem side, you probably made a mistake, right? And I get that was WhatsApp shopping for us. It's like actually nobody was saying that, and we built it because the technology was there. And I think that it's you're almost certainly going to have something that isn't sort of received in the way that you'd hope by customers. So that's kind of how I do it. It's a balance. It's a trade off, but pretty much everything still ties back to what customers need.
So fall in love with the problem and not the solution and take it from there.
Yeah, exactly. Classic, isn't it?
And then you mentioned beforehand that you spent a bit of time in finance and in banking more broadly. That happened to coincide with some of the interest around blockchain. Kind of curious around whether you see any parallels now with the discussions we're having around AI, or is this very, very different in terms of the hype around those two technologies?
Yeah, that is an interesting one. To a certain extent, there are parallels for sure. And blockchain was some mega hype, and especially the problem is venture capital just kind of puts this huge magnifier on everything. Because if that's what VCs are excited about, then of course you just have hundreds, thousands of startups, which all kind of pop up in the space, and you lose sight of whether the opportunity is as big as they think or not. Or there's just a lot of money there. And it takes a while for that to kind of wash through to see whether real businesses get created. To a certain extent, think with blockchain, its potential is still sort of unfulfilled. There's a lot of people use it for the coins and so on, but as this decentralized method of communicating trust, there's some really interesting things there. I can imagine a world where, let's say, for the card networks, so kind of MasterCard, Visa, what they do is they hook up the customer with the retailer, with the bank, and provide the trust while the transaction is taking place to the that you can order something, and as the customer, you're happy to stick, let's say, £1,000 down for this item. The bank is going to say, yeah, we're going to be good to kind of move that money across. And the retailer will say, great, I'll ship that item. And everybody's confident that this can take place, which if you kind of think before cards, probably 100 odd years ago, nothing like that could ever happen. I wonder if the card networks could be pulled out of the equation. You could have this system where you just kind of say, look, here is the store of value, and we know that we're good for it because of blockchain. I haven't seen that. So, but I don't think blockchain is in any way as big a shift of technology as AI is. And AI, the rate of change is just completely mind blowing. And we've seen something that's actually broken Moore's law. So I don't know if you caught the NVIDIA CEO when he was over here being interviewed by Keir Starmer, and just sort of said this is something which is actually, this has gone past Moore's law, which is just completely crazy. The speed at which we then go, it's not just what you see now, but it's like, okay, give this 18 months, give this 3
Yeah.
years, and it's completely nuts. And so I think that it's right that there is hype. It's right that VC money is piling in, and it's right that everybody, literally everybody, no matter what industry you're in, is thinking, wow, how is this going to change my lives? And parents thinking, how's this changing the world for my kids, and so on. That's right, because it's one of those shifts.
It's actually interesting, right? You mentioned trust quite a lot of there, and AI arguably creates a big trust question again. So maybe now is the time for blockchain to actually find the use case that you were talking about.
Oh my goodness. I mean, now, can you trust any photo you see down the side of any website? And it's clickbait. And it says things like, Martin Lewis has gone too far this time and he's in handcuffs being led away by police. And the thing is just completely made up. And that's on kind of quite legitimate website. So yeah, I think the videos that you see of people now, celebrities, I really hope that the big tech platforms are going to keep up with this and have some sort of seal to sort of show what's happening. And, when you get a WhatsApp through saying, oh, you owe money to whatever, and the thing is, like, we know the thing is just a scam, but obviously these are just becoming more and more sophisticated. Lots of people out there won't. Yeah, I really hope that technology manages to keep up with technology so that the folks who are wanting to do naughty things with this can be kept in check.
You've worked across a bunch of different industries. I'm kind of curious around what you see are the parallels between finance and grocery. And where do you think there's differences in terms of how technology and AI in particular enables them?
Yeah, so I mean, I shifted from fintech into food mainly because I'd sort of run out of ideas in fintech that wouldn't sort of cannibalize previous businesses. And so it was natural then to sort of think of something else. And I'd had this idea on Cherrypick. And it's funny, when I was starting out and evaluated the industries. So banking's really, like, doing fintech is really fun because you're up against the banks. The banks are these sort of big lumbering elephants that are just making so much money. They've just got no idea kind of what's going on. They just don't need to change. They're just fantastically complacent. And that's a brilliant place to be a challenger. You just whiz through in between their feet. When you start just kind of taking up your little sort of segment, so in the case of Monzo, it was kind of graduates, and the banks just thought we were just some silly thing, basically, with a sort of funny, bright card, and just not bothered about us until we hit 1 million customers, and then they realize, oh my goodness, it's a big thing. And before they've been able to react to it, I'm just now seeing Barclays come out with, I don't know, the ability to freeze cards, which we did about 10 years ago. So that's kind of banking. And I looked at the supermarkets, and actually it's very, very different. The supermarkets are very responsive. It's very tight margins. So, everything matters there. The supermarkets are actually incredibly well run. The challenge that they have on technological adoption is that they are massive companies, massive, massive companies, very often going deep along the supply chain, needing to know kind of what's happening. And I heard say at Morrison's, they actually own fishing fleets and so on. So, you need to, when you need more fish, it kind of goes all the way along all these different systems to basically tell somebody to go catch more fish in the sea. So that is incredibly hard to innovate within that. Anything that you want to do, even though there's fantastic technologies kind of coming out, you've got to kind of think about all of that. It is the same for the big banks. I saw these incredible architecture diagrams, so 200 systems trying to speak to each other, which is the lovely thing about kind of building from scratch. That's, I guess that's always why you will have startups, and startups can then jump on these innovations, and you're starting with this blank canvas, and you just go for it. And so I think it's super exciting what then if we kind of look at, let's say, the area of food, what will happen here with AI? Because I think for startups will be able to pull together what's happening in silos. So you kind of get your meal inspiration, people are going on Instagram, YouTube, and so on, kind of finding their recipes. A lot of people are on health journeys. And so they're on some app that's kind of helping them to eat more protein. And they're thinking about kind of the dietaries of their kids. And then they're deciding, there's kind of one particular supermarket they like to shop with just because it's all kind of set up to go. And I think all of that goes out the window. Instead, you'll be able to just go to one place and say, this is me, and this is all my needs and my family needs and what I want to achieve and my goals and so on. And you should be able to just shop wherever you like. So I can't see why I won't be able to use AI to just sort of say, great, you can establish my favorites, in fact,
Yeah.
and just go and get the shop done on wherever it's cheapest, and whoever can sort of deliver it to me tomorrow or maybe even tonight. So that I think is the world, like how technology gets used. I don't think supermarkets are in the right place to be able to do that, but I think the startups will do it, and then probably supermarkets will buy them.
And I guess like one big difference between finance and grocery is in finance, fundamentally, you're mostly shipping around bits and bytes, right? Like there's obviously you have to handle cash, but that's a small proportion of it. In the world of groceries, you have a complex supply chain because you're shipping around physical goods. Do you think at some point the user experience and the AI will really become more important than the range that you have and your fulfillment rates or your ability to actually bring the physical product to the customer as they expect for the price they expect at the time they expect?
I can't see anything that overtakes the sort of the big three pillars of retail. So I call it price, availability, and convenience, but basically the same things. It doesn't surprise me as an Ocado guy. The fulfillment for you would be
Right, it's availability, right? It's
yes,
availability at your doorstep rather than availability in a store.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so it is those elements that those are the golden rules of retail. They always have been, and I think always will. Ultimately, can you get the thing you actually want, the price that you want, in a way that's convenient for you? Technology is only the enabler. In all three of those areas, you can see how AI can help. Right? It can optimize prices for you or for the retailer, make more efficient delivery routes, and then for the customer, hopefully it means they're getting things either quicker or cheaper, but helping with making kind of the right stock range and the right areas and the right things available at the right time. So I could really see it improving the customer experience, not replacing the golden rules.
You're a very busy founder, and you've shared that one of the biggest regrets you've had as a founder was when Freddie, your first child, was born. You didn't spend quite enough time with the family because you were focusing on launching a product. How have you learned since then to balance that time between family and building businesses?
So yes, I did a massive, massive screw up just to sort of put this. I'm very happy to make this public because I just want to make sure that nobody else ever does anything as stupid as this. But when I was launching my first business, it was the exact same week I let my son Freddie arrive, albeit ahead of schedule, and I thought in my head, and I still can't believe this saying this out loud, that you only get one chance to launch a business, and so that needs to be where my focus and energy was. And so I didn't really take pat leave as such. I was just kind of working. And meanwhile, my wife Rosie, and she's given me permission to talk about this. She had postnatal depression that was undiagnosed at the time and was really struggling. And I'm very, very lucky that it took a few months, I'm afraid, but I'm very, very lucky. She took me for this walk and said, "You, Mr. Finance guy, I hope you understand this. You're in debt. You're in big debt. And now everything that you do when you're kind of late home and so on, your account is so overdrawn.
Yeah.
I'm really kind of angry with you." And so I, I, I really shifted things around. And I came up with this concept called Perfect Week. And what this is basically how I'd organize my week was I got all the work kind of bits in. And then in the bits that were remaining, I tried to sort of do my bit for the family. And that's obviously just wrong, but I couldn't imagine how else I was going to do it, especially in a very kind of hardcore, intense job. But instead, I put in the really important family stuff, like I decided I was going to put the kids to bed every single night, or be there for bedtime and so on. And we were going to share it all back in the sort of baby days, alternating the feeds and so on. And then everything else fit around that. And the amazing thing is, the company didn't go bust as I'd imagined it immediately would do. It, everything else does manage to fit in when you get your priorities straight. And so I'm a kind of big believer in Perfect Week. It's not really a kind of a tech. There's no tech solution to it, as it were. It's more about me managing technology. If anything, you just need a diary and
Yeah.
then to stick to the diary, and you can just see how the week is going to play out because your diary basically determined like that is your time. It's a lovely visualization of it. So either you're in control of it or it's in control of you.
Yeah, I've heard quite a few tech leaders saying actually when they are then at home with their kids, the last thing they want is more technology because having that human time with their family is so important. What are your rules around using technology and AI at home?
So they have evolved actually very recently. My wife Rosie was quite anti screen time, and as in really quite strict about it. And I really understood why. Yeah, her view is just children learn how to amuse themselves in other ways versus just kind of logging into this thing and then being hypnotized by it. And so we've made sure that the children are really good at that. We have a thing called quiet time. There's an hour in the afternoon where they just go their separate ways and just have a bit of reset. It's got to be screen free and sort of stimulation free.
Yeah.
And they both have ended up being very creative. And I think it's kind of a part of that. They're great at playing with each other and so on. What we've seen recently, Duolingo has been just a real hit with them. And it was really our au pair that introduced this. And so it wasn't quite kind of aligned with our policy, I suppose. But the kids are voluntarily in the holidays wanting to do maths and French. I cannot think of any other medium where that will be the case. They're like, please, can I do Duolingo maths? Please, Daddy, can I do one more? And I just sort of think, okay, this is phenomenally educational. It actually doesn't really matter that it's a screen. Like this is just the sort of delivery method. And so we're definitely sort of easing up on that. And as we go and Freddie gets a bit older, he's 9 now, I'd like to see him create like building software. He's learning a little bit of coding. He didn't actually know he was learning coding, but when I asked him about it in school, it turns out that yeah, he was sort of building software and controlling robots. I'm like, yeah, that's coding. I'd love to do a bit more of that with him and kind of guide that and just sort of see what's possible there. So I think we will be opening it up and being very careful. I'm very anti them having phones until they're as old as humanly possible. How that works out, but again, there are kind of bits of technology that I think will help there.
So there's some research that says that boredom is important for creativity. Was that what kind of made you create that 1 hour, or is it more that it was a feeling that quiet time is good for them and therefore that's what you did at home?
It was 100% selfish.
Right. Okay.
Basically, the kids used to nap when they were little,
Yeah.
Obviously, they stopped napping at some stage, although everybody else's kids stopped napping earlier than ours, and we kept on being like, "Just go for your nap, go for your nap." And we found this was so important as a reset for us as the parents, which meant that actually the children got the best of us afterwards. That
Yeah.
when they stopped napping, I invented this concept of quiet time. It's like, hey, let's have some time where we all get quiet time. And for me, it might be just sort of clearing out personal emails or just tidying up or whatever that is for the children. They look forward to it. We say, what do you want to take up to quiet time? And they get excited about kind of pulling the bits in for it. So it's ended up being great for them, but actually it was for us.
And what age were they when you introduced quiet time?
As soon as they stop napping, 3,
Oh,
4.
wow. And how did they react to you being allowed to use devices and them not being allowed to use devices?
Well, that's a great point. They haven't yet spotted that, and they are probably at an age where it's a risk, so we're gonna have to be careful. But, they're not. I guess they're not so crazy about devices that it's a big deal for them. The Duolingo has been a sort of first step to them using devices at home, otherwise it was just used for homework, which was interesting for me. The school was setting homework where you really needed to have an iPad, and it sort of became mandatory. So that was fascinating that the school had decided something that then affected your home policy around device usage. But yeah, they haven't yet spotted that, and we will be ready for the the sort of cry of hypocrites
For that
when
discussion.
it comes up.
So Duolingo, I think, is a very interesting product. It's like heavily gamified, and definitely in my usage, I've sometimes noticed that I was almost more trying to earn the rewards than necessarily maximize my learning. So, like, how you feel about this context? Because on the other hand, I know that you've been very critical about the use of technology in your school and the ability of the school to properly communicate with you through technological means in ways that makes that information quite accessible. So it feels like there's these two worlds, right? Something that's quite exciting, but maybe slightly addictive, versus something that's quite, I guess, like plain utilitarian, but not very workable. And where do you feel that schools should sit?
I'm a big believer in you do whatever you need to do to for education to be fun. If we look at the evolution of education over time and like how it used to be for, I don't know, let's say our grandparents when they were at school, how miserable that was. And I think there will have been something there that if you were having fun at school, something had gone wrong. I think everything that we know about psychology, behavioral science tells us you have to make things engaging, you have to make things clear, you make it memorable. So fun is probably a very good shortcut for a lot of that. So I didn't mind gamifying. I didn't think you should gamify everything. And I remember there's an episode of Black Mirror, which I don't know if you're into, which sort of explores when technology kind of goes a bit too far. But basically, you could rate every single interaction that you were having across your whole life. And so, you know straight away if you sort of interacted badly with this parking attendant and you got this like 1-star review. And it was fascinating watching this lady's life sort of fall apart as her star rating reduced. And so you don't want to gamify all of life for sure. But in education, it's got a big place. When you were referring to me sort of criticizing my school's use of technology, what I was saying there was just the understanding of how to make this easy, the user experience as a
Yeah,
parent is something that schools are not well equipped
yeah.
to do. And they just need to think, hey, how many channels are we sending information on? And how hard is it for the parents to sort of collate this? That's the bit that's sort of really missing. And I do think that we're trusting our schools to prep our children to be sort of well set up for life. And that means being good at technology. And actually, schools aren't brilliantly equipped for that. This is really tough. Like schools are the last to adopt any like decent tech. They're just very, very kind of slow at changing over with these slow buying cycles and very risk averse and so on. And that's a bit worrying when technology is moving at an insane rate. And we've actually just learned as well that AI is breaking all the previous kind of rules of how fast technology evolves. That's a bad combination. And so I think we've got to acknowledge that schools aren't going to prep children well. So we're going to need to sort of take that over.
So what is it that you do at home? where you feel the schools should really do it?
Well, I mean, I guess let's say French with Duolingo. We're using Duolingo because it's really fun and engaging. And I don't know how French is currently being taught, but I don't think they've made it as fun or as addictive as Duolingo. I guess it's where, like when I said that I want to do coding with Freddie. So I want to learn myself and then go on that journey with him. And I just think that's going to be a really fun thing to do and just sort of push his boundaries in the same way that he's having piano lessons at school. I'm a pianist, I'm a jazz pianist, and the stuff that I do with Freddie is very different to what I'll do at school because school are kind of getting him through the grades, and I'm teaching him to really enjoy the instrument and
Yeah,
take it somewhere. You use the school as this foundation, and all they're trying to do is get everybody up to this sort of same level, but it's to a certain extent this lowest common denominator.
yeah.
You've got to work then with your individual child and you like know what things they find fun and then sort of really lean into that. An amazing school would be able to do that, but I don't know what you'd have to pay for them to have this kind of level of individual treatment.
Yeah, I almost get the feeling that now we're going to have to split education and learning more and more, right? Education is the thing that you do in order to get the certificates that get you to the next certificates and the stuff that you need to do on paper. And then learning is probably the stuff that we support our kids more at home with, that actually contributes that love of something, the curiosity, the empathy, maybe more of the softer side of things. Does
Well,
that
maybe
resonate with the way that you think about it?
isn't that depressing though?
Yeah,
I would say what on earth is the point of education if there isn't learning at the heart of it? And so I'm I'm now of an age where I understand the difference between this sort of passing exams versus what is going to set up, say, Freddie and Lily for a great adult life, and doing well at school versus doing well in life. And so, what's fascinating is that, let's say, Lily, she's a firecracker and she's so determined, but it means that she doesn't want to do what we say. And in fact, she's really pushing the boundaries. Now, that for in the home, very, very frustrating experience as a parent. You're just like, please just do it because we said so, basically. Whereas when I kind of at school, she manages to contain that, and she's kind of model pupil. I think she's sort of doubly bad at home. Now for life, isn't she going to be amazing at life? Someone who is pushes the boundaries that sort of wants to try, just will do kind of whatever she thinks is the right thing to do, and is really stubbornly determined to get there. She'll make a great founder. Let's just say, my Freddie is very creative, but it means that he wants to do everything differently. So whatever is the right way, if you went to, I don't know, do a skateboard with it facing upwards, he wants to try and doing something where the skateboard's the other way around. He'll do sort of crazy stuff. He's going to be amazing at life, but that's not very helpful for school. And sometimes in his school reports, it's more just can Freddie listen and kind of crack on with the exercise because he's busy sort of dreaming up his next sort of crazy ideas. So I think we do need to just differentiate those two things about, okay, my child is good at school, great, tick actually that you just have to do that because
yeah.
this is part of the process of them getting into university, getting a good job and so on, if that is your chosen life path for them, versus the like, are they going to be great at life? And that is the bit as parents you need to be really focusing in on and just making sure you don't sort of smush the
Yeah.
good stuff, which is the rule breaking and so on.
You must be speaking to founders and parents in other geographies as well. Kind of curious around whether you think that certain aspects of this are particularly British and British school systems, or whether that's quite common across everyone you speak to.
I was very lucky to go to business school, a place called INSEAD, which is, I think, one of the best business schools in Europe. And its whole thing is about being the international business school. So there's no more than 10% of any geography in any cohort. They make sure that no one kind of country then can dominate. And that was just a fantastic learning experience about different cultural approaches to all parts of life, even if it's as simple as the Brits by default would use drinking as their social activity. So we're like, let's meet for drinks. And the Europeans just kind of found this a bit alien. It's not you don't need the drinks bit. Actually, a nice meal is the great foundation. If you have some drinks with it, that's
Yeah.
kind of by the by. And so those kind of that exposure was very interesting, and you do begin to learn just about different education systems that have then led to the people getting into the sort of becoming the adults that they have. And I think my learning about the British system from that, sort of about when you get this zoom out moment and you get to do some comparison, is we specialize very quickly.
Yeah.
So you make decisions aged 14 about your GCSEs that will then determine your A levels, that will then determine your degree. Age 14. In some cases, even at age kind of 11, you might make some calls that will then cut off options sort of later on. And I don't know I know that our A levels are very, very respected around the world, but I don't think that that is the best way forward. And I think something like international baccalaureate and so on, where you just do a kind of wide range of the US system, where you can even take that to university as well. The US system, you can major and minor in things. And so people do all sorts of random stuff just because it's interesting.
Yeah.
And that's just sort of part of their experience. And we just have no space for that whatsoever. You go to university, you do biology, and you are just all in on biology. And that seems a real shame. And you're doing biology because you had to have done biology A level and probably chemistry A level and so on. You had to have then made the decisions right earlier on. That seems wrong. So I hope if anyone ever takes on the kind of British education system, we do something about that and just kind of keep things a bit broader and let people get exposures. We all develop at different levels and get different interests at different times. Such a shame that your 14-year-old self is then determining actually what you probably do for the rest of your life.
Struck by what you were saying earlier about your kids learn to play the piano in school and then you make sure that they have fun playing it at home. There's a little bit, right? Also, the UK system sends them into school at 4 years old, when most other countries send them into school at 6 years old, and until then they focus much more on play and kind of getting to know themselves and the emotional side. Kind of curious around, like, what do you think are those skills that are really important then for kids to end up being successful in a new, much more technologically and faster evolving world?
It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, but isn't it crazy about you look at Scandinavians? I think some Scandinavian children don't go to kind of proper school until 7, and yet they catch up with the things that have been learned on the 4 to 7 bit, and they could probably sort of happy and all rounded. I haven't seen the data on it, but when we think about this new world that we're going into, I mean, we're famously bad at predicting the future anyway, right? So
Very true.
pretty tough. So I think to answer that question, I need to sort of know what's going to happen in technology. I don't know if you've seen Back to the Future too, but what they thought was going to happen between 1980 and I think was it 2015 maybe,
Yeah, it's definitely past a few years ago.
and everyone's wearing the t-shirts being like, "Where's my hoverboard?" Because they were so disappointed that the stuff just didn't get there. So I don't know what's around the corner, but it does feel like AI really is something else. Like this is absolutely something else, and it's a bit scary the amount of money that's going into it, the way that governments are sort of pushing to sort of be the world leaders on this and so on. So who knows? The only thing then you can say is probably the biggest skill is going to be adaptability, right?
Yeah.
It's going with whatever is the situation and knowing that you might have some area of focus. Because I was busy sort of thinking, I want my children to be learning to code. That's going to be the single most useful thing for them. And already at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, maybe you don't need to know how to code because AI is going to be able to do a good job of that for you. Actually, you need to be able to operate the software that builds software.
Yeah, know what to code rather than the code itself.
Exactly. So you just need to be able to and sort of iterate with that. I've been playing with Midjourney just on the sort of image generation, and there's a real skill to learning how to operate Midjourney. But I'm
Yeah.
not learning how to sort of create. I'm learning how to operate the software that sort of creates this thing. So that I think that's going to be it. It's going to be there's this piece around okay, what is the kind of interface and how to sort of iterate with it, and then get done whatever you need to get done. And there's going to be some part here, I think, as well about just sort of courage and boldness
Yeah.
because it feels like the world is there to be won by the folks that just go for it because the enablers are all there and all you have to be is the first to sort of pull it together and wire it up so that it works in this new way that people haven't thought of. So that's sort of courage and combined with sort of maybe creativity,
Yeah.
those pieces together, that is going to be somebody I think that can really sort of take on this next chapter of the world and do some damage.
So you are a product person, you're also a mentor and investor. Any of those skills that you bring home when it comes to the way that you think about your kind of your kids and how you educate them? Are there certain things where you say, look, the world, these are the opportunities, this is what we know, what we don't know. How do you shape the product of your kids in that sense?
I've never thought of the kids as products, but it is quite a fun analogy. And I think it probably works. So both I'm very lucky to have married somebody smarter than me, which is well, it's good and bad. But it means really we're quite thoughtful about what we do. We try to kind of think through at a principle level, I suppose. And we talk a lot about getting this right, trying to sort of prep the kids for later life. And that might be, say, about their emotional control, for example, not melting down too much and having a systems for conflict resolution, which are things that we've had to think of as we're married for 12 years. Those are parts that you need to figure out for yourselves as well. And so I guess it's those parts that we look at the children, you look at what the school gives, and you look at what they're amazing at, and you want to give plenty of space for that. And like Freddie is incredibly creative, and Lily is too, actually. Lily's very determined, and so you want to work with those. And then you just look at the things that they're struggling with, and those are the parts that you want to make sure that you're really actively working on, that are just sort of smoothing out, almost just polishing off those rough edges. That's what I think the role of the parent is. Ultimately, I'm a massive believer in nature over nurture, because I've just seen the kids are just different kids. They
Yeah.
come out and their personalities are just different, and they're not me, they're not Rosie, they are their own individuals. And I think that this is a piece of software that is playing out. That
Yeah.
software basically being written. So all we can do is tweaking and little bits of sort of bug management and so on. There's sort of just bits of polish, but fundamentally they are who they are, and we're just have this wonderfully privileged position to sit and watch them, watch that software deploy.
So shape the environment in which they can act more than anything else.
Exactly.
Thanks, Tom. This was an absolutely fascinating and very honest conversation. Maybe just the last one before you go. If AI will let you spend more time with your kids in 10 years' time, what has happened?
First of all, that's not going to happen, right? So with all of these big tech leaps, they've always said, I remember when PCs first came out, they said there'll be just no more offices. And then that will only have to work 4 days a week. And so it's just like, where is it? Where I'm still, well, here I am in an office. It's not Friday, but I still work on a Friday. And so I don't think AI is going to do that unless we reach the stage where employment is such an issue that to sort of spread out more jobs, it becomes much more common to do kind of 3-4 day weeks. That maybe, but I don't know. Fundamentally, I think we'll just get more work to fill the time. So I don't know that I'm going to have more time with the kids. But if what has happened, maybe all the work admin and personal admin has gone, right? Just all of that lower level, base level stuff, all of those tasks have disappeared. And somehow I haven't filled that with other work. Then maybe I'm spending more time with the children. The other way is just that we just say it. It becomes much more common for people to just say, I want to work 4 days a week to have more time with my family.
Yeah.
That I think that there's kind of, it's still, I think at the moment, more, it's mums, it's mainly mums. And it's a big deal for them to go to work and try to negotiate 4 days a week. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't just be mums. It shouldn't be a big deal. So that will be an exciting thing if there's a cultural shift. But I think that's culture in society, not technology.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you.